And we're making history. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you all tuning into my podcast. This podcast doesn't yet have a name. However, we will come up with one in the future. I decided to create this podcast to share and enlighten the collective around the shifts of the ages, so Earth's processional cycle, and what it means for us today, where we stand, because current day, many of you may have heard or may not have heard, but we are transitioning into the age of Aquarius. And for those of you who may not understand what that means, I suggest that you check out my previous videos on my YouTube channel around the age of Aquarius, where I thoroughly cover Earth's processional cycle, which I call the Great Year. And you will be informed, and you can receive the beneficial knowledge from this podcast. And today we're going to cover ancient civilizations, some mysteries behind them. So, talking about dates, how far back that it is believed they range back, to how far it is found that they actually range back, to catastrophes that have unfortunately diminished these civilizations, and some of their standings that still stand today, how they preserve knowledge for us today, and the importance of the time that we're in, because we stand at a very important time, and we have a very important purpose to welcome in the new world, going from the age of Aquarius, which is at the bottom of the wheel of the Great Year, going all the way back up to Leo, right? So we're going to welcome in something new in that half year period of time, that 12,920 years. So the education system and many other doctrines and systems, they never usually cover from anywhere going back 7,000 BC going up to 10,000 BC, 11,000 BC to the end of the last ice age. Usually they're covering about our common history. So starting from Aries with the Romans, the Greeks, and going to Egypt. So from 2000 to 4000 BC, covering their dynasties and their kingdoms. But anywhere before that, it gets scary. Many people don't like to touch those margins and eras, because it leaves a lot of room for error. I mean, come on, let's be honest. With all of the gadgets and advancements and the developments that we have today, there's still no guarantee or no certainty that you can precisely predate events and happenings, or even be able to look at old structures and sites, ancient structures and sites, and be able to pinpoint the time era that they come from, because you can easily make an error and overestimate or underestimate. So modern history, which again is the education system, many people will call it uniformitarianism. I think the name for it is. They will commonly address history starting from the time periods that we're certain about. So again, going from the end of the last ice age to modern day. And so our history goes far back beyond that. The first remnants that has been discovered of a human, of Homo sapiens, has been, as far as like our advancements, us advancing into what we call to be humans, is predated all the way back to, I believe, 200,000 years ago. Some will argue maybe 150,000 years, 140,000 years, but we can just add 50,000 years and say 200,000 years ago, just for the purpose of this video. And going back 12,800 years ago, it would put us precisely at the transitioning in phase of Leo, which is opposite from where we are today, meaning we're going into Aquarius, and Leo and Aquarius, of course, they oppose, which means that we are hitting the 12,920 year margin. Now, keep in mind that shifts, they don't happen overnight, but they're a gradual process, because the Earth's equator and its North Star doesn't just change overnight, but it's a slow, gradual shift. So this happens over the course of hundreds of years and so on and so forth to see real progress through the ages, hence why each age has three phases: a transitioning in phase, progressing through the phase, and then progressing out of the phase into a new age. However, so going back to 10,700 BC, we were at the end of the last ice age, which lasted supposedly 2.6 million years. It was a long period of intense cold, and there were many ice sheets over North America, Canada, and a lot of places that we have oceans and bodies of waters today. Back then, they were frozen, hence why our ancestors were able to migrate and travel to North America from Africa and to all over around the globe. They were able to migrate because these bodies of water were once frozen. And within this pocket of time, a comet supposedly hit the Earth and impacted various places around the globe. So from Canada to North America to South America, even supposedly Africa, South Africa. And I'm sure it even ranged all the way to Asia. It was a large comet. It's been spoken about in many religious scriptures, and also science has recorded evidence for it. It's called the Clovis Comet, and its destruction was massive. The native people, the native Indians, they've written many different scriptures for many different lineages about this comet. One that I'm going to read now is from the Ojibwe people, the Ojibwe native Indians. I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. The name of this tale is called The Heavenly Climbing Star, or the star with the long wide tail. To sum it up, they spoke of a comet that came down. They said it came down so low that its heat and radiation alone was so hot. It was burning up rocks, and it burned up and destroyed pretty much everything that was around, that was in its path. And they said that this comet was prophesized, and medicine men and women tried to inform their people, but many didn't listen. And the few that did, of course, they survived. However, it's interesting. They said that this had happened thousands of years ago. Their words, and they said that it will be revisiting soon. They said it would be coming back someday. And interesting enough, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but as far as our transitioning through the constellation, when we get to certain marks, when we reach the 12,920 year mark, which is halfway of the great year cycle, it is common, and it's been recorded oftentimes, that every time we transition these marks, things like global cooling, global warming, Heinrich events, Younger Dryas events, comet impacts, and all kinds of global catastrophic events seem to take place. And just outside of our solar system lies the Kuiper Belt. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, with asteroids and comets, and not even just the Kuiper Belt alone, but transitioning and spiraling through our galaxies, our Milky Way's arms, and the constellations. It leaves room, especially after a certain amount of time, for us to come into these constellations, these certain pockets and areas where we are likely and subject to experience turbulence. Hence why it is important to understand where we stand in this shift and its significance to us. But anyway, going back to this comet and its impact as it hit over a time span of 1,200 years, I believe, going back to 9,000 BC. It took 1,000 years or so to warm up the ice sheets. The ice sheets pretty much experienced a warming to where they melted, and it caused a lot of floodwaters that were enough to destroy whole civilizations with megalithic structures. And the evidence is present for us to see and examine from scablands in North America, from Washington, Oregon, going up to Canada, all the way to South America, the northwest coast of South Africa, to which I'm going to tell a story about the location of Atlantis, the mystery of Atlantis. I know many of you guys may have heard it as a child and believe it was just imagination. And you're not alone, because I thought the same thing too growing up. It wasn't until recently where it came to my awareness through dreams, through a lot of the things that I'm naturally intrigued by and I wish to study, like astrology, astronomy, energetics, and all of these amazing things as far as life today. So the story of Atlantis, it starts with Solon. Solon is the distant relative of Plato, and in Solon's days, in his travels to Egypt, he met a priest, an old priest that told and translated to him the story of Atlantis that was inscribed in a temple. This was around 500 BC, and the story dates back from their time 9,000 years. In the Timaeus and the Critias, I believe it's called. Those are two books by Plato, which he spoke about Atlantis. You can read it, you can search it up, and all the details will be there. He spoke about how Atlantis, in a single day and night, was catastrophized, or however you would pronounce that word, by a flood. And he said in his time, which is 300 BC, because Solon from him is 6 generations, and Solon's time was again around 500 BC. He said that 9,200 years ago there was a flood, a catastrophe, and that dates back to the end of the last ice age, which I mentioned after the Clovis comet in 10,700 BC, 1,200 years ago, which would bring us to 9,000 BC. The ice sheets had warmed over a period of time, and they created mega floods, major floods that destroyed built-up civilizations at the time. And the Ojibwe native Indians, they said, the comet made a different world. They said that after the comet, it was hard work. Survival was hard work, because imagine going from building over thousands of years, maybe going back 15,000 BC, 22,000 BC, where lineages are cultivating, they're gathering themselves, they're learning, they're understanding things in a different way, in a different light. And that little bit of information that you guys are holding on to survive as a species, it gets nearly almost extinct. It almost gets wiped out, because the civilizations, the standings that you guys built has been wiped out by a comet. And so for the people after, right, it's hard work. It's hard work and survival for these people, And the ancient people of Mesopotamia, they spoke of this man, of this deity called Oannes. He was depicted as a hero to these people, and it is said that he helped rebuild their civilization. He's depicted as half man and like half fish or something like that. It leads me to the question, because many of the ancient depictions of our people, they were always mixed in with some sort of animal or something. It always makes me question, like, could they have been communicating with any extraterrestrials? I know that sounds woo-woo or whatever, but it's very possible because what are the odds that at a time where civilization is almost failing, almost extinct, that we somehow seem to get back on our feet and rebuild? You know, I know that's very possible, but I mean, it still can't be ruled out. So anyway, yes, he Awanis taught his people skills like mathematics, how to build uh, structures like places to live and stuff like that, and to build a civilization again. He taught them different things like writing skills and things that they would need to know to stabilize civilization. Now, he didn't do this alone. He did this with his seven sages. They call them the seven apocalypse. I believe, I know that's a funny name, but they call them the seven apocalypse. And they also helped build their civilization at the time, help them rebuild, help them gain back the knowledge that they lost. And going back to the Mexican people, the Quetzalcoatl, I can't even pronounce that name. Uh, in their literature, they also depicted a feathered man, feathered serpent, but also he has an alter ego that is depicted as a person. They speak about him helping them to learn agriculture, helping them to build temples, and all of these amazing things to again get back on their feet as a civilization to continue to develop. And he wasn't alone. Again, he was with his magicians. They call them magicians, or you can say sages, or enlightened beings, whatever name you want to give them. He wasn't alone, and him and his team helped rebuild their civilization. And this alone astonishes me because ancient civilizations, right, our ancestors, our elders, those closer to our time, not even dating back as far as the floods or the comet, they had knowledge of these happenings, right? They recorded these events, these happenings, or the knowledge may have got passed down to from these beings, these deities that these people, these cultures, they worship or they pray to or whatever. And it matches up so well with the facts that we have today, that are scientifically proven. And I'm not a big fan of science. I love science. I love to learn. I'm an open mind. But as far as modern science or what is accepted in society today, I'm not a big fan of it because I believe it is very limiting, right? Because here we can't even explain how come these people, they just had these records and of things that they didn't even probably, if you ask them about, if you have a conversation with one of these people, they probably can't even tell you like, yeah, I know about the ages and so on and so forth, and give you all the factual evidence for these shifts and these happenings that take place. However, they may be able to educate us and share with us their wisdom in story context. Maybe it might be in the form of a story or something of again the shifts taking place, the old world, the new world today, and all of these interesting things. And it doesn't stop there, trust me. And touching back on the flood, there is a tribe called the Brules from the Lakota Nation, and they spoke of a world before this one where they said the people of that time and the animals of that time, they turned to evil. Just like the Ojibwe native Indians, what they said as far as the people abandoned the spiritual path. Also, the Brules spoke the same message. And since the people and the animals turned to evil, the Creator supposedly sent down thunderbirds which wage war and battle onto the humans and the animals. And they said in the midst of that battle, the thunderbird sent down their most powerful attack, which shook mountains. It set forests on fire and done all of these things they proclaim as a comet would. And then they say that the creator chanted a song, spoke the song of creation, where it rained and it rained and it rained, to where it flooded. And after the flood, the remains of large animals were left, right? And it's synchronistic because people still find the remnants of large animal bones in the Dakota Badlands in South Dakota today. Not just in South Dakota, but in various places in North America, from Florida to all the way to North America, going to Canada, and many other places around the Americas. And you might be asking yourself, what animals went extinct in this time period? Now, going back from 11,000 years ago to millions of years in our past, the animals were much larger than they are now. I'm sure many of you are aware of this, from dinosaurs to large, weirdly formed looking kind of animals, and many people will call them beasts or what may it be. These animals, they're a lot different than they look today because their climate was different. So they had to be built different to survive, to acclimate to their needs. And at the end of the last ice age, the mammoth, the American horse, the American cheetah, the short-faced bear, and 300 different animal species, probably more than that. You can't, we're just playing around with numbers when we are speaking on these situations and these time frames and periods, because again, you can't precisely date events going back that far because of the kind of technology that we have today. Especially when there is many different catastrophes and natural disasters that build up from these times going on in the future, going on to our present day. And even in the past, it's like it's too much that goes on for you to be able to pick up a rock and say, well, yeah, it's this exact date. You can, I'm sure with the technology and the advancements we have today, we can closely paint the picture of our past to get an understanding. And yeah, so that should give you an idea and an understanding of what went down 11,000 years ago in our past, going back to the age of Leo, all the way from the last decan of Virgo, right? The last decan, that 720-year span, that transitioning out span into Leo, where the Clovis comet hit and created a ripple effect to where we see an abrupt warming in our climate to a spike of cooling from maybe the ice sheets melting, or just a sudden spike again. Every time you get to that 12,920-year mark, you get to that halfway mark, certain things happen. They just seem to happen out of the blue, because that we were going to the end of the ice age. And in 9,000 BC, 11,000 years ago, right after the comet, it just seemed to be an abrupt cooling, right? It spiked almost to resemblant to the peak of the ice age. It was very, very cold at that point in time, creating perfect conditions for floods, earthquakes, and all kinds of different natural disasters building up on top of one another. And again, that destroyed many different ancient civilizations. Now, what I admire about our elders, our ancestors, that helped us rebuild from this point in time, and even those who experienced such a time and lived through it to pass down knowledge and information, or what may it be, to the future generations, right? They stood up on their feet, they stood strong, and slowly but surely, we came to a point where we were again able to form civilizations and bring life back to a normal. And after the floods in the last ice age, right, we have Gobekli Tepe, which emerges, and it shows us that, again, our ancestors, they were able to successfully build some form of civilization, some form of structure, because these people the site that they cultivated, it is not of hunter gatherers. It's not of people who are just learning to survive, but it is of I would assume people who have some form of intelligence to be able to organize this site in the way that they have, right? And they preserved it because a lot of their work isn't even accessible. They at some point covered a lot of their work with rocks. They threw a lot of rocks and different kinds of material over their work to preserve it for some reason. And I have an assumption that these people, they wanted to preserve the site for the future, for future generations to be able to witness it, and so that it can stand. Or maybe they just abandoned it. Who knows? We don't know for sure, but that is what I would like to believe. And we have gunung padang with large rocks that were put in a specific manner for whichever reason that it was created for. We don't know why they created it, but today people still meditate there. They still practice their spiritual practices. But the top layer of gunung padang is said to be 6,000 years old, dating all the way back to 4,000 BC. And there are structures beneath it that dates back all the way to the last age of Aquarius, going back 25,000 years or so. That's a long span of time. And thankfully, because of maybe different kinds of natural disasters or nature taking its course, these sites have been preserved, but also because of the work of our ancestors. And going back to the age of Taurus, right, in 3000 BC, I believe. The age of Taurus started in 4000 BC, but going back to 3000 BC, because one age lasts 2000 years, we have the advent of Stonehenge. Supposedly, they say the Giza pyramids. Now, I believe the Giza pyramids go way back before 4000 BC, but it doesn't matter. I think the point here is that our ancestors, they built megalithic sites. I mean, pillars and structures that are, they weigh tons, and they're arranged in magnificent ways to where going back that far, it's surprising that they were that intelligent, right? I know none of you can argue. No one will argue that these people, they were very intelligent. I was just watching something today on the pyramids, and they brought up some very good points about the engineering of the pyramids, like the blocks being arranged in such a way where you can't even fit a piece of paper between the cracks of it. And the blocks alone, right, to maneuver the blocks, bring them from however far they got these blocks, they were so heavy, they weighed so much, and each block weighs a different amount. So, you're starting anywhere from 2 tons to maybe 10, 20, 15 tons. And with that amount, it would take hundreds of men to be able to pull at least one block, I'm assuming. Maybe more, or could be less, who knows. But anyway, and even if you were to take these blocks on rafts, on canoes, or whatever to transport them, as some have proposed, you would have sunk. There's no way that you could carry that much weight on a canoe or on a boat and it not sink, and let alone the men be able to carry it and bring it there. And now, to have construct a structure as such of the Giza pyramid, right? Not only is it estimated it should have took longer than they were able to build it in. It said that they've had many slaves or so build the pyramid. They just majestically built the pyramid. But this doesn't make too much sense to me, because for the amount of slaves they would have needed to build the pyramid so high, right, and so precisely as they did, you would have to feed these men at least once a day. But you're going to at least feed these men twice a day, working so hard, they need to have energy, right? And so the amount of food they would have need to cultivate it would have been ridiculous. And if we're not going to give them props for the pyramid, we'd have to give them props for that, you know? So going back and looking at some of these buildings and looking at the way that these people were living, it's just, it blows my mind. They were more intelligent than we can understand. And thankfully, there were those who took the initiative to translate a lot of their times, their understandings, and their findings, inscribe it on walls, on caves, on temples, through religious texts and scriptures that stand all the way till today. Like all of these things that have been preserved, artifacts, all of it coming from all around the globe, right? These people that took the initiative to do so, they've helped us to advance a whole lot. They've laid the foundation for a whole lot, you know, more than I think we give them credit for. And even for the things that we still don't understand today, you know, they say they don't really have any real records of, or I'm sure that they probably might be like records and stories about how the Great Pyramids were built. But of course, even if they were to tell these stories, they might sound so fictional that people wouldn't believe them, you know, because our as a collective, our minds isn't that open yet, right? We live on a planet in space, right? Orbiting around the sun that's orbiting a galaxy, right? Around so many comets, so many other planets, so many different kinds of forms of life, and the way that life has come into creation in such a chaotic manner, right? From dust particles arranging together, bangs, and volcano, and all just kinds of the process of life. It's not really pretty, or not really put together as some might think it to be, or want to understand it to be. You know, the world. What would the world be really without chaos? That's a good question. You know, so but again, even for the things we can't understand about our ancestors and how they built and how they done certain things, I feel like a lot of these structures, beliefs, and knowledge is supposed to be preserved for future generations. We might not understand it now, but best believe somewhere along the line in the future, it will come at the right time to where we understand what was going on, you know? So I think this means we should be more humble in our approach. We should be more humble about what we've come to build today. Like we've come a far, far way just from the age of Aries, where people were riding horses, and life was a whole lot different then, right? Where we were battling kingdom against kingdom. Well, I have the saying that a lot is different, but not much has changed. You know what I'm saying? Like different rules, but same game. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we've grown a lot, but when it comes to war and when it comes to global connection, we still haven't reached that place yet. And that is why it's important, again, to be thankful for what our ancestors done for us, so we can appreciate their efforts, look at what they've done, look at their wrongs, look at their rights, and see where we want to go and where we want to head in the future, right? Because going up that wheel to the age of Leo, which will be in another 12,000 years, we want to set those people up, that future for a peaceful world, you know? We want to make sure that they are as strong, as powerful, as prideful, as honorable as a lion, you know? Which I'm sure they will be. Now, in our age, the age of Pisces, because we're in the transitioning phase out of Pisces, but let's go back all the way, well, a few hundred years after 1 CE, 1 Common Era. I want to go back that far because I want to give the people at the start of the age of Pisces, I want to give them props for what they have built, because going back from that time, I know you guys know who follow history, and if you don't know, if you look back into the 200s, they don't have half the things of what we have today. That's the time of Julius Caesar, the Roman Empire, and all of the classical war battles that we learn about in school, and uh, that early on, and going back from there, where again it was horseback riding and all of these funny things. They made it, they survived, they made the most out of it. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud of these people, really, to today, where I'm broadcasting before millions and billions of people. That wasn't accessible before. And not just the age of technology, which is a sign of Aquarius, right? Aquarius, the water bearer, it rules the 11th house, which the 11th house is all about innovation, humanitarianism, and aspirations. What you want to offer and bring to the world, what is different, what is unique about you. And today we're seeing that at an unprecedented scale. Gender normals are changing. More and more people are coming together, working together. We are trying to right a lot of the wrongs that have taken place in the past. Today we are closer than ever than before. I know it looks otherwise because of the media and all of these kinds of agendas, but that is not true. It's further from the truth. So that should give you an idea of what we're stepping into, right? But again, it's important for us to be humble, because when we can accept this kind of knowledge, we can forget about the present moment, enjoy the present, but understand that we are a part of something greater. We are a part of something much more than just ourselves. So we can take pride in what we do, and we can do it to the best of our ability. We can lift our brother and our sister up rather than tear them down and try and take them down, because we're only taking down ourselves and those in the future that have to suffer. So, yeah, I know it's a lot of information, but again, that is our history, that is our past, and also it's our responsibility, because the past creates the present, and what we do from here on creates the future. So it's all a chain effect, and this knowledge and information is just good to have overall, because if more people understood this, then we can find creative ways to protect ourselves, from natural disasters and cataclysms. Now, I don't believe in living forever, and I know everything has to die, everything has expiration date, even the earth. But I do believe it is in our nature for us to advance and for us to grow and to develop, to do new things, and to not remain stagnant. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that the human civilization is just meant to end here, and that the age of Aquarius, I don't believe it. I don't see it. So I have faith in us. I have faith in us, because each and every one of you that are listening to this podcast right now, you guys are beautiful, and you guys have potential beyond my eyes, beyond what is maybe repeated to you, or what you may see from yourself. Many others may not tell you that you have potential, or you might not see it in yourself, but I know that you guys do, because we have the breath of spirit within us, right? We all breathe this one divine energy that is strong, it is powerful, it is intelligent, right? Because it created life before our eyes. And so if it is intelligent enough to do so, and it flows through us, then that makes us intelligent, and that also gives us unlimited potential as well, right? Just anytime you feel like you don't have potential, remember that you are stardust. Literally, you're made of the particles and the dust of a star. You know what I'm saying? So, technically, you are a star. Yeah, I believe that pretty much wraps up the message for this episode. It was just to touch basis on what happened in the quote unquote old world, going back to the age of Leo to now, because that's a special time span, right? The halfway mark, almost to completion of a full cycle, which I'm sure will bring something new. And best believe the cycles don't stop there. There are much more greater cycles, right? In life, what you'll see a lot of is fractals. You'll see a lot of smaller, bigger events happening just outside of smaller events, and so on and so forth, vice versa, you know? And actually, that is how one of the influences that taught this knowledge to me, Randall Carlson, how he got interested in by it. When he was a boy in his hometown, he was standing by a lake, and he was looking at the lake, and he said he just like got it was being channeled to him, like he blanked out for a moment, and he realized that the lake he was looking at was once upon a time a part of a bigger and a greater lake, but there was no evidence and facts to support this. So him not being able to shake off this awareness, it drove him to studying and researching all kinds of scientific literature and historical literature. And in his time, because he's a older gentleman, there wasn't much text to again to support him, to support this kind of realization. So it took him years and years to build his portfolio and his knowledge on this, but lo and behold, he was actually right. He figured out from a archaeologist of a older time. His name is J. Harlan Brents, I believe. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but something along that line. And he too was criticized for his belief of a major flood happening. They call it the Missoula flood, and it took years, a lot of years. It took many, many years for his colleagues and peers to acknowledge him and actually find the evidence for this flood. And so that is the first episode of this podcast, and I will be back with more mind astonishing facts and information about our recent past and about the future where we are headed. I'll see you guys there. Peace.